This week on Myopia Movies, we riffed Jojo Rabbit. We did Jojo Rabbit, of course, because the new Home Alone, Home Sweet Home Alone, just got out on Disney+. And the kid from Home Sweet Home Alone is the kid from Jojo Rabbit, the friend, the fat kid. So we thought it would be a nice crossover. Also, if you want to hear us riff Home Alone 2, it is the riff at the $10 level, which, you know, is what it is. But nothing like Home Alone 2 to really get under your skin. I think it's the lesser of the first two movies, though some of the torture near the end is quite remarkable. Thanks for listening, subscribing. And of course, remember, $10 level. If you're not there, you're missing all of our riffs quarterly. So thanks, guys. Welcome to Myopia Movies. Thank you for being a Patreon subscriber. This week, in honor of Black Widow coming out, we're watching Scarlett Johansson in a non-Disney movie. Although Taika Waititi is also in this, and it's not a Disney movie. Wes Anderson does Hitler. I'm Nick Hoffman, reviewing Jojo Rabbit, and on panel we have
Charlie Rose,
John,
Christine, a.k.a. Fitzy.
Yeah, and if you are listening and Fitzy's on, I need to make sure we plug, of course, Cineprom's Patreon as well.
Yes.
Join the Patreon group. We have freebies up now and again, but on the Patreon, we do have a whole bunch of movies up as well. We come out with a movie every other week, and at the $10 level, you also get a short once a month. So, we're doing this because we thought it would be a good idea to talk about Scarlett Johansson and something she has done that is not related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially since she's suing Disney right now over Black Widow, and it's also not one where she's sort of playing an Asian character, so we're not going to talk about that one either.
and as far as we know, it's the least racist character she's played in a while.
Yeah, because she's a good guy in this one.
She is a good guy.
She is, yeah.
Anyone want to give a kind of quick, short plot synopsis about this Hitler movie?
It's like Drop Dead Fred. But
Oh, you know, it's
Oh
a
my
lot like Drop
gosh.
Dead Fred. Wow.
Wow, that's a deep cut.
Wow.
Stay tuned for Drop Dead Fred again. I've not thought about that movie in a long time.
that's
No
all
one
I could
has.
think of. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's Drop Dead Fred, but in World War II era Germany.
Yeah, I mean, because like she, the thing that I guess to me kind of I like her Black Widow character, but she's usually in so many fun, eclectic movies. Like she was in Ghost World. Love Ghost World.
Yeah.
She's in Lost in Translation. Love Lost in Translation. She's in Her, which is like where she's playing like a computer thing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, no spoilers for Her. If you haven't seen it, it's 8 years old now. But like, she plays these fun characters.
Was that the Al Pacino movie?
No,
No, that was Simone, I think. Wasn't
Simone,
it?
was that it?
That's the
Okay,
Simone.
yeah.
Her is Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
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 But yeah, where he falls in love with the computer.
Yeah,
Effectively. Designed to seduce him. It just
As all computers and women are to do.
yes. I mean, but like her character in like Marriage Story it's a hard movie to watch, so we're not gonna make fun of that. But you know, she's fun in this. It's a different kind of movie, and I'm glad she's making her money.
She did very well in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she gets to work with all the fun people. Taika Waititi, she's in Isle of Dogs, which is Wes Anderson for real, and she's in Hail Caesar, which is the Coen brothers, which I like very much. So, Drop Dead Fred for kids.
Well, Drop Dead Fred, World War II era.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't say it's for kids.
Yeah, it's definitely not for kids.
with kids.
With kids. With kids.
yeah.
Yeah, with kids. So it's a kid in World War II who's full on Hitler youth,
Yeah, he went
and
to Nazi summer camp.
his imaginary friend is Hitler,
Played by Taika Waititi.
which is amazing
Yeah.
because he's not Aryan at all.
No.
Yeah.
He's probably the antithesis of Aryan. He's a New Zealander slash was he Maori? Maori?
He's a bit Maori, I think. Not as much as Jermaine Clement, but
Yes. Yeah.
but that's the whole game. Like he is dancing around like Springtime for Hitler and the producers,
He's such
Yeah.
a happy Hitler.
and he is a ham. Like at certain points, like you see him like in a Native American headdress, and he's choking to death on all the scenery he's eating. It is
And just hearing him like the kid has a bad day, and Hitler's just like leaning on his arm, going like, "So tell me about your day, son." It's like, God, he's handing it up. It's so fantastic.
Well, and again, you have to picture this too.
In that funky accent. So, tell me about your day.
and it's, again, like the producers, he's played very fey.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not quite gay panic, but he's very much chummy with this kid. He's like a 10-year-old's imaginary friend, and unlike real Hitler, which they get to because as the war is ending, and they don't really say where they are, I don't think, but it's clearly supposed to be around Berlin, because at the end the Russians are on one side, the Americans are on the other. Hitler's killed himself by this point. His buddy kills him, and Hitler comes up and he goes, "Well, I guess we lost."
I mean, even better, like, Taika Waititi has the blood clot on the side of his head that's bleeding as he's talking.
And his uniform's all torn.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's fantastic. It really is. And he eats unicorns.
I do want to point out, it's not so much that he's being goofy or silly, but he really is capturing that whole perspective of, I'm playing what this kid would imagine is Hitler.
Mm-hmm. Like, you could substitute him for Captain America or some other superhero imaginary character. And that's what he is.
Yeah, because on one hand, they are the person, but on the other hand, they are a creation of the kid who is trying to get, attention and validation and love and all sorts of other things,
While missing a father figure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we should also, I made the joke at the beginning about it being Wes Anderson for kids. You really have to think, it's filmed like Moonrise Kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. Where the kids are in the middle third of the screen, and then the background, Hitler just like traipses through, but the colors are vivid, and like the first kind of movement of this is the Hitler youth are in this forest at summer camp, and it really could just be like Boy Scout summer camp in North Georgia somewhere. And by the way, the kids are terrible. Like, they are trying to make the kids ready for war, and so like they're just in the woods, and the fat friend whose name I'm completely skipping on right now is trying to throw a knife into a tree, and it bounces off and immediately hits a kid in the leg. And there's no supervision. They're just giving these kids grenades, which will come back in a second here. They're throwing axes and practicing with guns. And who's in this movie? It's not Melissa McCarthy. It's Sam Rockwell.
Rebel Wilson.
Rebel Wilson is in this.
Sam Rockwell is fantastic.
Sam Rockwell is.
And again, in a move out of Wes Anderson or something, he's designed his own uniform after being disgraced. Then we see him going to battle with like ribbons on. It's something. Stephen Merchant comes into this later. We'll get to him. But the mom, the character is Jojo, the titular Jojo Rabbit. His mom is played by Scarlett Johansson, who's Rosie. Sam Rockwell is Captain Klexendorf, who is in his own way disgraced. Because no one takes any of this seriously. Rebel Wilson is in this as Fräulein Rom, who she gets a great death in this movie too.
She certainly.
Oh my god,
Absolutely.
she's fantastic. She's
Go
only
hug an American. Like,
Go hug an American. Like, I watched that and then had to stop it, rewind. Like, did I see that right? Like, she ties a grenade to a kid and says, "Go, go hug an American."
Well, and we have two movies going on, kind of, sort of. We're staying with Jojo the whole time in his goings on, but he has a buddy called Yorkie, played by Archie Yates, who's this little kid with these big Coke bottle glasses, who hangs out with the youth the whole time and ends up on the front when the Americans are invading, which is something. Which is just...
They do a good job of showing the fall of the Third Reich from inside Germany. Like, the kid is seeing his world as the Aryan race is the perfect thing. And he's slowly seeing that crumble. Like, he even says, like, to Yorkie, like, he sees Yorkie in his uniforms, like, is that paper? Well, yes, but it's special paper that Hitler designed himself. It's like, this will protect me from all the bullets. It's like, but it's paper. Like, and we see it later, and like, it's literally crumbling off this kid's back.
And maybe it's just that it reminds me of the summer camp, therefore Moonrise Kingdom. But like, it is. It's like a fantasy sequence where he makes his own armor out of the... You almost expect them to come in with medals that they've made for themselves, which is kind of the Hitler joke at the end when his uniform's all tattered, because it's not real anyway. But yeah, the whole thing is that... How do I put this? I was reading an interview when the movie came out, so it's been years ago, and I apologize, my memory's a little hazy on this. COVID and all. But part of it was like, Taika Waititi was saying when I was doing research for the movie, we're talking about, Hugo Boss, and we're talking about, those are fashion designers. It's vibrant and it's vivid. Yeah. Why are all these movies so gray and dark? And so he really films it like it's candy colored, which is fantastic. And it really makes the movie pop. And then you're like, horrible things are happening. Because, halfway through this opening montage, Rebel Wilson is giving this lecture to the kids. They're in a tent, they're in this canvas tent, it's kind of dark and it's shaded, and there's a chalkboard, and she goes, "The Jews!" And there's this picture out of the Necronomicon. It's the satanic image, they have Jew underlined, it's something, and that's there. It's very cartoonish, but we can't forget that this is also horrible, right? Mm-hmm.
And they do a good job of, as the movie progresses, of showing how the propaganda goes along. Obviously the Jews, he asked, as we'll get along, do Jews actually have horns in their heads? And, does the Jew queen spawn eggs and then they grow out of the eggs? Kids who have no concept of how Judaism is and what people are. I mean, beyond the fact that this kid has no idea what people are.
Well, that's the other joke, because he also doesn't understand where babies come from either. Exactly. And he's like, so do Jews come from eggs? And you're just like,
and the
10-year-old child.
I mean, to lack of a better phrase, the Jewess who's in his house says oh yeah, we come from eggs, and I'm too young to grow horns because they come in when you're 21.
Yeah.
And we totally have hive mind. We talk to each other. She plays this kid like a fiddle, and he has no concept that he's being played because he's 10, and she's obviously
to be fair, she's about the same age too.
Yeah, she's like 11 or 12.
Okay, she's a little bit older.
She's got to be 16 or something, isn't she?
16?
I have no idea. I can look up how old
she says that she's engaged to
Nathan.
some guy, Nathan.
Wow.
Which I don't know if that's true.
Okay, it's the 40s. It could be 11 and engaged to someone.
Well, but it also might not be true. We know we find out he's been dead for days. Dead for a year at that point.
And his sister too, because she pretends to be his sister, and she was born in 26 or something. And so this is 44.
Yeah.
So math being what it is, that's 18. Ish?
Yeah. So in actual time in this movie, the actor Roman Griffin Davis, who's the boy, who's Jojo, is 12. And Thomasin McKenzie, who plays the girl, who we'll get to in a second, is 19. But she's a New Zealander.
Yeah.
The kid acting is actually really good in this.
Yeah, the kid's very good. He's a believable 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't know if he's actually German. I don't think he is, but he holds up that accent pretty well. He's an American, or he's British and he's French. So he started auditioning at the age of 9, and then his first acting gig was this movie. So, holy shit!
Wow,
I am very talentless.
What have you done with your life?
That's right. So at the summer camp, or whatever this is, this Hitler Youth Camp, Jojo gets bullied by these older kids, and he's sulking off with his best friend Adolf in the whole world, Adolf.
Because he's told to kill a rabbit. You must be prepared to kill something at a moment's notice for Hitler. And they say, okay, can you kill this rabbit? And he runs away. He says he can't do it.
This is where he gets it.
And that's how he gets the name.
Exactly.
Jojo Rabbit. And while he's running in fear, he runs into his best buddy Hitler, who's running alongside him to try to make him hey buddy, let's talk about this. At which point, Yorkie comes over and makes sure he's okay. They're having a big assembly here to talk about what's next. So motivated by Hitler and his friend Yorkie, he grabs one of the hammer grenades, he throws it, it hits a tree, and comes back and blows this kid to shit. 15 minutes into this movie, our hero blows himself up with a grenade.
I think even Hitler looks at him and is like, oh God, jeez, oh God.
Ouch. Ouchie. And I guess then enter the movie Scarlett Johansson, because they come together at the hospital, and then they take her home, and he's upset that he's scarred. She's upset because this ruins her side hustle, which is going on at home, where she's effectively working for the resistance and hiding someone in the attic.
I do like she walks up to what's his name character, the colonel, and
Klippendorf,
kicks him in the balls and says, "You hurt my kid. you're going to take him in and give him a job.
Yeah,
And he's like, yes, man, absolutely.
Sam Rockwell again playing kind of a racist character. He's like, sure.
With his boy toy from Game of Thrones, Alfie, what's his name?
Yeah.
The Iron Isles guy.
Oh yeah, Alfie Allen. As Finkel.
As Finkel. I don't think he really says much of like 2 words, but it's the coded gay thing.
It's coded gay, but he's also the only real Aryan around. Like he's he's got the strong jawline, the high cheekbones, and he's
oddly enough, he looks the most awkward out of everyone in this cast.
Well, it's because
except the 10-year-old.
Well, it's because Rebel Wilson, who also, I mean, she's playing up her blondness in this, but like, there's no control anywhere. Like they do a good job of the last days of the Third Reich because, again, you get the feeling that if Captain Kletzendorf is in charge of anything, things have gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Rebel Wilson is, she's a party lady to the end, but she also has no control over everything. In fact, when real Nazis show up, played by Stephen Merchant as Dirtz, you realize that everything else is a joke. The movie is showing up now.
Yeah.
Right? And he's terrifying. Stephen Merchant, who I always confuse with the guy who plays Vision.
Paul
Bettany.
Paul Bettany. He looks like Paul Bettany to me, even in this movie.
I thought he looked like Christopher Lloyd's character in Roger Rabbit in this movie.
The judge.
Yeah.
The judge, yeah.
You know what? If the Dip showed up in it, same movie. It's
Yeah,
the exact
I love the scene where like he looks at Sam Rockwell's character like when they meet, and he's obviously like standing on a box or something because he is like shoulders and head above Sam Rockwell's character, and he leans over at the hips, like awkwardly, like, "Oh, how are you doing? Hey, good to see you again. Okay."
Well, and you realize that again, if this post is in charge by Cliffendorf or whatever his name is by Rockwell, everything else has gone wrong because. Like, his uniform's always askew. He always looks
he's
kind
lost
of
his eye
drunk.
in the war because he flat out says like, "This is why I'm here instead of on the front serving my Führer because I lost my eye due to something, but I can still aim and so here watch." And so he takes just guns and starts aiming in random places and shooting things.
In a Wes Anderson montage, by the way, it's like pose. Because again, Sam Rockwell's great. I wouldn't replace him with anything. But Bill Murray could also be doing the exact same thing. Or Owen Wilson again from Royal Tenenbaums, just wearing a cowboy hat, being like, pew, pew, doing trick here.
Like, I love it. Like, he's like, and so this, my job here is to teach you kids how to defend the Third Reich. So you'll be digging trenches, you'll be firing guns, you'll be learning survival techniques, you'll be doing all this blah, 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 blah. And also for the girls, you'll be learning how to tie sutures and birth babies. And there's like about like
the women's duties just killed me.
Yeah. And Rebel Wilson is like, yeah, for the Führer.
I had 15 children for the Führer.
She gets real intense. She's so good in this movie.
She's fantastic. She only has like 4 lines in it, but
Yeah,
she's
pretty
amazing.
much.
So he's Jojo ends up getting sent home because he's injured. Like you said, he gets threatened. The captain gets threatened. And so he'll have a job that gets him out of the house, which gets more and more absurd as the movie gets on.
I love when he's dressed as like Robbie the Robot, collecting scrap metal for the war effort.
First of all, since its buddy is Jermaine Clement, it's definitely the Flight of the Conchords robots from the future. But it's just cardboard and like chunks of like tubing. Like it's really bad. They're collecting scrap metal for the Führer.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't know what Scarlett Johansson does yet in the movie, but she's out of the house constantly, and so Jojo was supposed to be at camp. She can't give up her job because it's the war, so Jojo's around all day and starts hearing walking around in the walls.
And his father is supposed to be fighting in Italy. That's what he's been told.
Yeah.
But the bullies say like, well, we haven't heard from him in years. No one knows where he is. So that's your first sign that something's wrong.
We also realize very quickly what's kind of neat. This movie alternates between almost being a chamber drama and not, because we spend a lot of time in this house for what we're about to reveal, but the outside world almost doesn't matter. And it's filmed very much like there's white paper over all the windows until there doesn't need to be, like until the war actually shows up and reality actually has to set in. But like Jojo's kind of the king of his own castle, and even the mom, in a very weird scene where she gets drunk and pretends to be the father.
Yeah.
Scarlett takes this role for a walk for a little bit. the boy's trying to figure out what the real world is. Because, again, something that Taika Waititi is trying to deal with is, what do we blame kids for? What can we blame them for? He didn't make this movie in a vacuum. He made it in 2018 when we had a lot of division in this country. Yep. So what do you blame a kid who's been raised up in a left-wing or right-wing house for? Well, this is what he's doing. He's taking a 10-year-old boy who's been in the Hitler Youth, who hates Jews all along, and who's the person he finds on the wall but, a Jew.
Yeah.
Right? Like literally all of a sudden we have, Number the Stars happening upside, or...
Yeah, and it is comical, and they play it, and they refer back to it over and over again, that he hates Jews as monsters, but he has literally no concept of what a Jew is. And so once he discovers this Jew girl who's hiding in his walls, he makes it his mission to write the definitive book on Jews, which is all about them being literal monsters.
Yeah.
Well, he's caught in the problem that... he realizes that his mom has been hiding her. And so he can't turn her in because then that would incriminate his mother. So, of course, this grand idea of writing this definitive book on the Jews is his way of rationalizing how he's not going to turn Elsa in.
Yeah,
right.
Her name is Elsa. And again, we alluded to earlier, she's the age of what his sister would have been. Do we ever get what killed his sister?
No, she just died at some point.
Well, and some of the vagaries is good because remember, this is his story. And again, you're not going to talk about, well, you had an older sister and she died. No, you're going to, he knows she's gone. And it's entirely possible she was gone before he was even really born or was aware of stuff. He's 10, she was supposed to be 16 or 17. If she had died when he was 2 or 3, he might not even barely remember her.
Yeah.
That's smartly left out of this. But we then have this because then Hitler shows back up. He goes, "Oh my goodness, there's a Jewish in your house," and he goes, "What should I do?" And he goes, "You should turn it, but most about my mother." It goes back and forth very kind of lightly here. But kind of the next movement of this movie is him trying to figure out what to do about this. Hitler's there negotiating. He puts on a colander on his head, and he has his knife, and he's like, "I'm going to ask you questions about how the Jews live." And he just starts rattling stuff off.
And it's clearly stuff he's heard on the playground. Or at Hitler Youth Camp.
Yeah. We're the superior race, so she puts him in a headlock. And says,
Right.
"Get out of it, superior race boy. Come on."
Well, and that's the other thing, too. Every time he thinks he has the upper hand, he's also a 10-year-old boy dealing with a 16-year-old girl who's a 1.5 feet taller than him easily.
Yeah.
And so, he has, this little knife on him, but she immediately disarms him.
Yep.
And so he then takes one of the kitchen knives and then immediately disarms him.
And even the mom says, "Where are all the fucking knives? We've lost all these knives."
And he's also, and again, his concern is not just that, he would rat out his mother, but that Elsa might cut off his head.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, he is genuinely afraid of her.
Yeah.
And Hitler's like that Stauffenberg did, and took my
But because I had bomb-proof legs and superior intelligence, I was able to outwit Stauffenberg.
No, I think it's von Stauffenberg.
And I was able to find all the traitors who are around me. So you must be smarter than them. Smart like the rabbit.
Well, and he goes, so you should do what I did. He goes, pretend I'm dead? No, not that. Be smart like a rabbit. Yeah, that's right. But again, remember, this is a 10-year-old kid's head, so he tries things like reverse psychology. And you made the joke earlier, but this is where Hitler goes, I have to go now. I'm having a unicorn for dinner.
Yeah.
And then he flies out the window.
He does.
Yes.
He flies away. But again, and it's funny too because this is lit like a cartoon. So it's all greens and bright red brick walls, and Hitler's like, "Adios," and then he jumps like Bugs Bunny out a window. Like Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
And about this time is when Jojo almost confronts his mom because she comes home late, and he knows now that there's a woman that he's Franking up away in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, let's make dinner. I've lost track of time. She's clearly frazzled. We also get the runner here that he can't tie his own shoes, which is where the tragedy comes in later,
Yes.
which is why your wife doesn't want to do this movie. She got angry when it got sad.
Yeah, it was funny until it was sad, and my wife was not paying attention to it, and she looked up at just the wrong scene, and she said, "What the hell are we watching? I thought this was a comedy."
Well, and again, and you could be confused because like he's always wearing his dress like his kind of
Nazi uniform. It's
his
either
Nazi uniform.
all black or brown.
But I mean also. There's the bright red bands, and like he's wearing it oftentimes this kind of forest green jacket. The wallpaper in here is that bright red kind of paisley.
Yeah.
The tile is always green. Like there's colors
greens,
everywhere.
Yeah. And she's wearing like boho chic type thing, like pantsuits and bright red shoes.
And so many hats.
Lots of
The
hats.
greatest of hats.
Yeah.
The most wonderful hats.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, like, there's even a scene where, like, he now knows that there's an enemy in the house, so he wants to guard her. And she's had a long day, so she wants to take a bath. And so he's standing outside with, like, a fire poker, right? Mm-hmm. And you have these kind of beautiful, like, dark red woods in the door frame. She's in a yellow bathtub. The walls are green. Everything's colorful.
Well, even Scarlett Johansson and the kid, they've got matching, like, bright green and yellow pajamas.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, and that's also the story you're getting, that she truly loves him, but doesn't recognize him.
She doesn't trust him.
Right.
Because she flat out says, I think to the girl, to Elsa, like, he's full-on Hitler Youth. I don't know how to talk to him anymore, but you can't trust him at all. Because he will turn us all in a moment, is what she's thinking.
Well, and she has that line, like, I have to choose, if I have to choose between you and my son. I don't think she even finishes the line, but she's like, he heard noises, and she obviously doesn't realize the interaction they've already had.
He thinks it's the ghost of his sister.
Right. I mean, and there's all these sides to this, like, there's family stuff that you don't know. I think, she goes, his grandfather wasn't blonde or something, like, and he'd be willing to turn in his own grandfather. There's darkness here. And it's funny because Scarlett Johansson is in a very different movie here because she's living a terrified life.
But she's still taking care of her kid because we get some good scenes of her dancing with her son.
Yeah.
She says something along the lines of like, the only thing worth living for in life is to dance or to have fun. And so she dances with him, and she dances there at the park or something like that. And she dances with him there. And a good highlight of it is Taika Waititi focusing on her shoes, which obviously we get to later, but it's the bright red and white dance shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
She's always dancing. She's always got that movement in her.
Well, Tarantino came in and directed a scene.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
The next big movement comes in where Jojo trying to decide whether or not he should tell someone. So we have the Hitler Youth training at this swimming pool. And he kind of sidles up next to the captain, and he's trying to be like, so what would you do if you found a Jew, essentially? And we have the pretty boy Alfie there, who doesn't have any lines. And, they talk about the magical powers of Jewish people, including whether or not they can hypnotize someone. And Rebel Wilson comes up and goes, that happened to my brother once. He got hypnotized, and then he got an inappropriate relationship with his sister, and then he drowned in an unrelated incident. You're just
like, okay.
There's a lot to unpack there. And even the captain's like, okay.
Well, and it keeps cutting back to the pool, where at first Hitler's just swimming with a bunch of mostly naked men.
Yeah.
And then you have all the Hitler Youth come out in their Boy Scout uniforms with these heavy packs on, and then they just jump into the pool.
I think even Sam Rockwell says like, okay, they're drowning. We should go get them.
Well, they finish the scene, and then Finkel's like tugging on his sleeve, and the captain's like, yeah, we better go rescue him, because these kids are literally drowning. Which again is, and again, the scene you have to picture is framed like Wes Anderson. Like there's this giant, weird, designed brick or tiled wall with a little kind of seat, and they just Rebel Wilson scoots her butt the whole way down and goes, that happened once with a hypnotizing Jew.
But we set up how the kid goes to Sam Rockwell's character repeatedly, saying like, so what do you know about Jews? Or how do you know if a Jew is hypnotizing you? Or something like that. Which comes in later when the SS visits his house. Sam Rockwell's like, oh, this is why you were into Jews so much. Well, which I love that scene.
Yeah.
But we'll get to it, but it's one of the better scenes of the film.
Well, and it's interesting because we never know Sam Rockwell's real motivation, which evolves over the movie, because, again, if this is told from his perspective, from Jojo's perspective, he needs to figure this out over time.
Yeah.
Which he does, which is why it's good. But, I mean, other than this, pretty much, it's just him trying to get information out of Elsa to figure out this book on the monstrous...
And she's playing with him.
Oh, she's having the best
totally.
of times.
She's like, so
Exactly.
yeah, my horn's growing when I'm 21, or the queen lays eggs, and then we all go worship her, whatever.
Well, and whenever he gets really like uppity about being like this master race, she's just like it's also how boys grow up differently than girls, and girls mature faster. But like she practically picks him up by the scruff of his neck and goes, "Master race my ass," right? Like, and throws him or. At one point, she's like with stronger race, and she like practically kicks him out the door. And you realize too, he's trying to not bond a relationship, but he has no friends. Like, because even his real friend, like Yorkie, is now essentially the front line of defense in Berlin.
He got into the Hitler Youth, whereas Jojo did not.
And all we have then is him talking to Hitler. Little Adolf here, who again is wearing costumes. Like he's cosplaying as a Native American, as a pirate, and we eventually here at one point see Scarlett Johansson desperately trying to burn a piece of paper, which we don't really know what it is, but by him seeing it, he knows that he can't trust his mother again. This is where we get the scene where she gets drunk, which is kind of my favorite scene with her in the movie.
He tries to be like the super father figure of the family. Like, what are you doing? I need to be like a true Hitler Youth, supporting Hitler for everything. Like, you're not my father. I wish my father was here. And so she goes, puts on the overcoat of her husband's SS uniform, goes to the chimney. The chimney, wipes some ash on her face like a beard, and says, "How dare you fucking yell at your wife?" And just screams at him.
Yeah. I will also say, too, the other funny part of the scene is...
Your mother, sorry.
Skojo is pretending, of course, that it's just him and the son. But Taika Waititi as Hitler is there like, yeah, bitch. Like, he's like bobbing his head around, looking at her all saucy. Meanwhile, she's got this bottle of brandy, which she just is done by the end of the conversation. Yeah. And when she starts talking back to him, Hitler gets really uncomfortable. He's like, oh no. And then she does the...
Doesn't he say something like, I have to go. I should be somewhere else.
And he gives her a dirty look as he walks away.
Well, I mean, and that is the moment at which you realize this movie is not going to be lighthearted.
Right. Because what he says, he calls himself a deformed kid. Like, he's getting down on himself, which again, the Nazis were not particularly fond of people with handicaps.
No.
Yeah.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is what Sam Rockwell deals with, and now, of course, Jojo's dealing with, realizing he's not this perfect Aryan kid. And so Skojo then... I think we also are supposed to understand that the father didn't left the family or is dead because she has this jacket. I don't know how he
fights. I had the impression he was fighting in the resistance, but...
We never get it.
Yeah, we never really get a definitive thing.
And I think that also plays into one of the aspects of the movie that I absolutely love is everything in this movie the information they present, the acting, the portrayals of everyone is very much from the perspective of a 10-year-old kid. You don't get these backstory details because he doesn't have them.
Yeah.
You get this portrayal of the mother, which is very warm and tender, but then spinning on a dime and being, something he doesn't recognize, with this whole montage of her playing the father. I mean...
Which is great. Like she leans, after she yells at him as the father.
Yeah.
They go back, she goes back to the fireplace and kind of leans away from him and is like, did I say it too loudly? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk that far. Well, he shouldn't talk back to his mother like that. Well, I didn't mean it in that way. And
exactly.
so you get this back and forth between the mother and father from his point of view.
Exactly. And so it was just absolutely wonderful from that perspective.
And I mean, we also start to see around here, I mean, we're, halfway through the movie, two-thirds of the way, or a third of the way through the movie, somewhere in there. It's 100 minutes for about 45, somewhere
It
there.
moved quick.
But I was going to say, this is also where he starts to change.
Yeah.
Because he's upset with his mother, but this, of course, humanizes his mother. But then the next scene, he's with Hitler in the library trying to find information about the Jews. But Hitler goes, books are stupid. Well, then he goes, why am I writing a book? He goes, and then he just drops the book and leaves the scene. Right, because he realizes more and more that all this is a facade. And Jojo really doesn't understand, but he's 10. He's learning this as we learn this, which I think is very effective.
I think they did a fantastic job in this film of showing how that facade crumbles away.
Mm-hmm.
You go from him being 100% Hitler Youth to the point that he grabs a grenade, a live grenade, and throws it to hurt himself, to where he effectively befriends a Jew and gets on her side against the SS. And you see this crumbling of his entire world.
Right.
Because he's 10. He grew up with the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
That's all he's ever known. Hitler is the only leader he's ever known. And so to go from he's Captain America to he's at best a lying piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot to do in probably a few weeks of what this 10-year-old is going through.
That's right. I guess we could also mention his relationship with her. At this point, he finds out that there's a boy named Nathan that she has a relationship with. She says they're engaged. And so he starts writing fake letters to her.
From a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
It's like,
I hate you, and you're a loser.
Nick knows, our kids have warped senses of what's a priority in our lives because it's based on what they think. So, when my daughter says, she's angry at me, and so she's taking things out at me, she says, well, I just won't invite you to my next tea party.
That's
it's
right.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't really give a shit. But to her, that's a huge affront. And so this Jojo is writing these love letters from Nathan to Elsa, and I didn't really like you after all. Also, I'm fat and unemployed, and I grew a beard.
France is terrible.
Yeah, France is terrible, and I just can't deal with it. So goodbye.
And eventually he starts feeling bad about this. And so he starts to write apology letters too, which is really
I didn't
cute.
mean that last letter I sent. I'm so sorry.
And Jojo is still the best. But yeah, and so this is the relationship. He's learning how to deal with Elsa. He's trying to actually developing a more mature relationship with his mother. And when this is happening, we see less and less of Hitler because Hitler represents this kind of immature youngness. But in the meantime, he starts trying to get interested in what the mother is doing out in the world. And this comes about when he gets his new job, because first he's just handing out pamphlets, and then he has to pick up scrap metal, at which point he sees his mom.
He's handing out draft papers.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is literally he's just going door to door, because everyone is being drafted because the war is going poorly at this point.
So bad.
It's right.
It'd be fun to watch this in companion with that Hitler movie where he's in the bunker? Downfall.
Yeah.
These in companion with each other because Hitler, we find out, killed himself halfway through the movie. This is they happen concurrently. So, yeah, it's fun stuff. So he's handing out draft papers, or conscription papers, not draft papers, conscription papers. Even the German shepherds that they found.
Oh, the German shepherds.
Not the dogs, the German shepherds.
That was an Amelia Bedelia joke in the middle of this. And Finkel is so upset that the captain is frustrated with him. He goes, "Oh, that makes so much more sense. I'm so sorry."
I meant the dogs.
Just send them home. Just these poor confused men.
Well, they do show up later in near the end of the movie.
They've got machine guns and these German shepherds.
I'm glad they came back. I missed them.
Yeah, full circle on the shepherds. That's a wrap on the shepherds. Yeah, and at a certain point, I mean, the rest of this is just building to the war coming to town, so to speak. But, at one point, we have a couple of scenes in between Elsa and Scarlett Johansson, between Rosie. And, eventually Elsa goes, so why are you, risking your life for me and all this? And, she talks about her own daughter who's died. And she talks about, like, what it means to be a woman, to fire a gun, to fall in love, to travel to Morocco. And it's all the stuff that she never got to do, and we don't know why, right? But as the tension is building, we have German Shepherds show up.
Well, then we have the SS show up, or the Gestapo.
Yes.
The Gestapo show up.
Which is one of the best scenes. It's
Absolutely.
fantastic. I love the craziness of whenever they're introducing themselves, every single person in the room has to say, Heil Hitler.
Yes.
Heil
Well,
Hitler,
it's the
Heil
scene
Hitler,
of
Heil
Doctor
Hitler.
from Spies Like Us.
Exactly. It's 5 minutes of people just saying Heil Hitler to each other.
And again, it's Sam Rockwell shows up. He's half dressed. Finkel's there dressed to the nines. And I forget which happens in which order. But when he's scrap metal collecting and he sees his mom run off, leaving the anti-war notes behind. This is when we're reintroduced to Yorkie, who's now just walking around with an assault with a gun.
Yeah.
Because he's now just the front line. He's trying, he hugs his friend, they run off, and you realize, these kids are still actually in the war.
Yeah, they gave Yorkie a gun that's bigger than him. He's got it strapped across his back, and it's taller than he is.
That's right.
And he's wearing his paper uniform because they can't afford cloth anymore. And he's like, yeah, I'm defending the fatherland now. So,
right.
Yeah. What are you doing? Oh, you're collecting scrap metal? That's cool too.
In the meantime,
and he sees the bullies who are driving away in the the Humvee.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we're going to war. All right, yeah.
We'll see them in a bit half dead.
Yeah, half dead. No longer cheering.
And we should also say too, at some time around here, Jojo steals colored pencils so that Elsa can draw because they actually are developing a relationship. He just has no idea how to show any of it. Because he's trying to be the man of the house and also deal with the racism he's grown up with.
I think at some point he recognizes that she likes to draw, or she wants to draw because she draws like
a version of him.
It's a version of him or something like that. She draws something, and so she likes to draw. So he gives her the colored pencils and the book to color her own pictures in, which actually the Gestapo like. They think it's hilarious.
Well, and it eventually, we're at the Gestapo scene effectively, but it's what gets him, it's their next fight, because Jojo's at home alone, the mom is gone. I don't know what they're looking for, if they think there's a Jewish guy hiding in the walls or something, but they're looking for his mom, actually, we find out later, because she's working for the resistance to one degree or another. But the Gestapo's walking around looking, in their black suits and their kind of fedora hats, are looking door to door. Jojo doesn't have a story for anything, so Elsa shows up as his missing sister Inga. Again, a story we have no idea. And his ignorance on it kind of helps the story.
So he's acting very panicked, because on the one hand, these are people that he's been taught to look up to. But on the other hand,
always respect and always be honest with.
Exactly. And on the other hand, he knows there's a Jew in the house that if she's caught, because I think even Sam Rockwell says at one point, so if a Jew is found in someone's house, they'll hang the people whose house it belongs to, they'll hang the people who hid them, and they'll probably hang the neighbors too, just for good sense. Mm-hmm. They'll hang everybody.
Yeah.
So he's freaking out because he thinks he and his mom, and probably his neighbors as well, will just all be hanged because this girl is in his house.
And sorry.
No, go on.
I didn't want to step on anyone. What happens is eventually he asks for people's papers, right? Stephen Merchant, as this officer, is asking for papers.
The girl pretends to be the sister, and he says, "Do you have papers?"
And Inga, the former sister, her papers are still in the bureau, the desk, whatever. And you have the captain reading the paper, checking the passport, and she calls out the paper. He goes, "What's your birthday? How old were you in this photo?" Yada yada yada. And she passes the test, but we find out very quickly that she lied and got the dates wrong, and the captain is covering for her. But around here, Stephen Merchant finds the book, which I think is called Yoo-Hoo Jew.
Yeah.
Yoo-Hoo Jew.
You Jude. Yeah.
Which is...
And the Gestapo all gather around and is like, oh, they have eggs for children. It's like, oh, this is fantastic. Oh, I love this. They're all giggling at it because it's what a 10-year-old believes, all the stuff that they've been telling them.
And then there's a montage of torture scenes about a boy named Nathan.
Who's this Nathan? I don't know who this is.
Which, it's very like... I mean, but again, it's like, this is like a devil man who's controlling the levers of the universe. But it's... Well, and again, the funny thing is that these people are just buying up, and it's just signs like, die Nathan, die. But what's flashing across the screen, again, like we're in Wes Anderson, like in Royal Tenenbaums, where you have the books, because all the kids are, prolific. And this is also where Elsa is like getting really crestfallen because obviously Nathan is dead, which we find out in the next scene. And she's kind of trying to deal with it. Now at the end of,
But I love that scene before we move on. Sam Rockwell, when the sister shows up, you can almost see the gears turning in his head. Like he looks at her, then he looks at Jojo, he's like, you never told me anything about a sister. I didn't know you had a sister? Oh, you've been asking a lot of questions about Jews.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's where he puts it together.
Yeah, and then he sees the passport, and he covers for her.
Yes.
Because he covers for Jojo by covering for her.
Right. And I mean, the war's effectively here at
And
this
he's
point.
flat out said, it's like, fuck, we're going to lose. There's no way we can win this thing.
He knows it. I mean, there's a scene where they have like a map of the city, and he's pushing around raisins because...
Here are the communists, here are the Americans, here are the British, here are the Soviets, and these are just almonds. They just happen to be here.
That's right. And about this is the point where your wife started paying attention because at this point everything is going to like after that kind of lighthearted scene. Oh, we got away with it. This is when the war is coming to town, right? We cut outside, and regular people are just holding bazookas for no reason.
Well, and he's on the street. I don't remember if he's like shopping or something like that. His mom has disappeared. She hasn't shown up since the Gestapo. And he sees a butterfly.
Yeah.
And so he follows the butterfly. He's trying to catch the butterfly, and he sees it on the ground. Then it flies up. He stands up, and we, the viewer, see a pair of shoes by his head. He's under the gallows.
Yep.
And he sees his mom's shoes.
Exactly. And that's when...
That's when my wife paid attention.
Yeah.
And if you didn't think the movie was dark before, there you go.
Oh, yeah, it's about Jews in World War II. Okay, yeah. This is where I get
Well, it's a lighthearted movie, right?
Yeah.
What a romp we're having.
Yeah.
Well, all the previews, when this was going to come out, all the previews portrayed it as this fun, witty, charming,
Which it is.
Taika Waititi
Which
movie.
it is. But it's funny until it stops being funny.
Yeah,
And then
that's true.
it becomes a World War II movie.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah,
No,
and so
I mean, and then we
spend like a
never
couple
s-
minutes of him just like he's trying to lift his mom up, like he's grabbing her
he's
feet
holding
and
her.
trying to pull her up. And
We see one of the leaflets that she was
ties her
handing
shoes,
out.
doesn't she?
He
ties her shoes.
Yeah.
And then one of the leaflets she was hanging out was pinned to her pant leg or whatever. And I mean, and this is the first time we've seen people who were executed in the town square. And I think her line is even, he goes, what they do? And she says they did what they could. Something like that. And she's sympathizing with them early on. But we get this kind of montage of him sitting in the square, and all the buildings around him look like they have eyes looking down on him. But we start hearing the bombs in the distance because at this point the war is going badly. Like, everyone's been given guns, and that's the scene he's traipsing through following this butterfly of people with rocket launchers and guns.
Old people who are missing limbs have machine guns and rocket launchers, and kids from his summer camp have machine guns and rifles and rocket launchers and grenades.
And in his grief, he tries to stab her with his knife, and then again she immediately beats him up. But this kid is like, I'm just stunned that this kid is 12 because he's such a good actor. But he's trying to cope with this as the war is coming to an end, and he's trying to stab her because he blames her for all this. But very quickly we realize that the war is lose-lose. I mean, the next scene pretty much is them sitting on the roof as the bombs are dropping.
Well, he sees his friend, and his friend says like, okay, so we've got the British and the communists are closing in, and I heard they all fuck dogs, and they eat children, and they all have devil tails and horns, and you see JoJo's being like, that's not at all true.
That can't be true. Well, and
Hitler killed himself.
Oh, and Hitler killed himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about who you should surrender to, the Americans or the Russians, which is funny. And around here we get the idea that Nathan's been dead and she hasn't seen her family in years and all this is going poorly. And then we finally kind of turn the corner and we see that Berlin is actually mostly destroyed. He leaves his block and we don't know how long it's been since his mother has died. But everything's falling apart. He's getting food out of the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
The colors are now no longer Wes Anderson bright. They're all washed out. And he's desperately trying to eat whatever he can find while his imagination of Hitler is still eating unicorn bits. And
not just unicorn bits, but like a whole unicorn head made out of whatever. Like it's a whole head of a horse on a plate. And he's just picking at it with a tiny fork.
Well, and about now is when he tries to catch a rabbit again because, full circle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can wrap this movie up. Almost.
I mean, we see Rebel Wilson leading the children in the resistance. Again, strapping a grenade to a kid and saying, go hug an American.
Go hug an American, yeah.
We see Yorkie again.
She
and
gives him a gun and it's like, okay, go. You've been promoted.
Well, we also see Yorkie holding the back end of a rocket launcher. And he goes, Jojo! And he drops it and blows up a building.
Yeah.
Which I think is a trailer moment.
Yeah. And half his uniform is burned away because, again, it's just paper.
Because it was just, yeah. And then everyone dies.
Yeah, Rebel goes out in a
Rebel
blaze
Wilson
of glory.
goes out.
Rebel Wilson gets killed, and and then
Captain K.
Captain K. Captain K.
He's amazing. Feather uniform.
Rips off JoJo's
jacket.
The Hitler
Youth jacket. So he's not being recognized and calls him a Jew, so that
he can get away.
JoJo can get away.
Well, to put perspective in that, he and his friend, his guy friend, Captain K
Finkel.
and his guy friend.
Finkel.
They're dressed in their feathered uniforms with their special machine guns, going to defend the fatherland like they said they would. They drew a little picture of how we're going to defend everything, and obviously it's preposterous. And then we see the next scene after all shit's gone down, and I presume Alfie is dead because we don't see him again.
Correct.
No.
We see Captain K, and he's just all beaten to shit. And he takes JoJo's Hitler Youth uniform off. And he says, "Get out of here, you stupid Jew! Get out of here! I don't know you. Go away." He's saying this more to the Americans who have captured them all than to anyone else.
I think the Russians specifically.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was Russians.
Was it Russian?
And they immediately execute him. I mean,
Yeah.
And again, you have this scene between the friends where they're just walking down the road, and he goes, "Yeah, the Russians are coming. They eat women and they have sex with dogs. The British do it too. We have to stop them before they kill our women and have sex with our dogs. That's what it is." But yeah,
and you see JoJo's like, "You're full of shit. I
Yeah.
don't believe a word you're saying anymore."
And again, you sympathize with these kids because Yorkie eventually does make it out. But as he said, Hitler killed himself. He blew his brains out. He's hiding a lot from us. And it turns out that the Americans are coming, the British are coming, the French are coming, the Russians are coming, and the Africans are coming. And he goes, pretty much everyone's against us except for the Japanese, and between you and me, they don't look very Aryan. that was so hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Rebel Wilson.
Which sums up World War II in a very well-placed set. Yeah, it's fantastic.
But yeah, the captain sacrifices himself for the kids. Both Yorkie and JoJo make it out alive. And I think Yorkie gets a line. I don't seem to ever die. Which is pretty good.
Good for Yorkie.
Yeah, good for Yorkie. JoJo for half a second lies to Elsa about the war being over and said they had won.
Yeah.
And then he lets her out.
She beats the crap out of him.
Which she should.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
But then she
Yeah, she makes up.
She makes up,
Yeah.
and it's
I
sort of
think
like
she knows why.
it ends on
Meh.
happy,
Optimistic, I'd like to say.
Yeah, they still probably die of starvation later, but up until then.
War orphans roaming the countryside.
Yeah. Berlin Open City is happening.
Yeah, really. I mean, he says they won the war, and then says, like, dress in your best, we're going out. So she dresses in his mother's clothes, and they go out. So they step outside, and she sees Americans running around in jeeps. It's like,
Stop. They're Americans. They're firing guns, they're singing, and they're waving a flag. Like, we end up at a Creedence concert or something.
and she's like, obviously you lied. So she like smashed the crap out of him and was like, you fucking shit.
Yeah.
And then they both start dancing.
And then they dance.
And then dance.
If you had freedom, what would you do? I'd dance. It's nice.
Yeah.
That's how you end your movie. That's how you end your Hitler movie.
Yeah. Oh, and he ends Hitler. Hitler says, like, are you a Nazi or not? And he kicks him out. He kicks him in the nuts and sends him out the window.
He kicks Hitler in the nuts. That's the way you end the movie.
That's how you end Hitler.
Hitler with the headwind.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's Jojo Rabbit. They end with a dance montage directed by Taika Waititi.
Amazing.
Yeah, but it ends on a Wes Anderson shot. Like the two of them in frame, the colors are light, and then they have the quote from the German poet from earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Rilke, something like that. Rilke with an R.
Rilke.
Yeah, Rilke. Yeah. So Bond movie. So Scarlett Johansson died halfway through this. It's a good movie though.
Probably the best role she's been in a while.
And her accent was not annoying.
Yeah.
There was quite a melange of accents, though. Some vaguely
Historical
Australian,
accuracy is probably not what they were aiming for
vaguely
here.
British. Yeah, it's. I think they just like Rebel Wilson just could not get her self around a German accent. I love her, but
It's hard to make an Australian given a German accent.
Dude, she was holding onto that line with both hands and it just kept slipping out.
But she was still one of the better parts of this film.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, try to make her not funny. She's very funny.
She's amazing. In just about everything she did. She was in the Ghostbusters movie, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, that reboot one.
Yeah. Everything she does except for that movie, she's been fantastic in.
I mean, she's funny in it. It's just not a good movie. Just because we're here, we'll do this when it comes out. But Little Shop of Horrors are doing a reboot, and Scarlett Johansson is Audrey.
Wait, what?
No.
That's what they're saying. Taron Egerton is going to be Seymour.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're saying. Billy Porter is going to be the voice of Audrey too. I don't know. Could be
I'm
good.
down with that.
It will Bill Murray be
yeah.
Bill Murray? I hope so.
I don't know. Apparently it's in production right now.
I think Bill Murray and Steve Martin could play the same characters.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I think they could.
Who else is here?
Because Steve Martin looks the same.
Yeah.
Wait, what's the dentist's name?
Bill Murray?
No, in Little Shop.
Oh.
Does he have a name?
Yeah, because he's dating Audrey at one
Yeah.
point, right? So is it Oren? Is that who he is?
I don't know.
I don't know, because that's who Chris Evans is playing. If it's Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson together again, that'd be fun. Anyway, I mean, we can wrap this up. This is a good movie. I hadn't seen it before this, actually. I had missed it. I bought it. I like this movie. What do you think?
Overall, it was pretty clever. I like the angle that they were doing it from a kid's perspective. They were pretty consistent. The thematic elements, the shoes, the colors, and how those played into the evolution of the movie, as well as the evolution of JoJo's maturity. Times like these, I wish I was a smarter person when it came to brainy things like psychology, because I'm betting that there's a story there, even more so that's being told, some sort of a journey or progression through adolescence of some sort. It's a smart movie. It's well done. I really don't have any criticism of it.
Likewise, I hadn't seen it before we watched it for this. I remember hearing good things about it in the reviews, and I like Taika Waititi as a director. He's done a lot of fun stuff. I admit, when I heard that he was doing a World War II movie, I kind of jumped on the bandwagon of is that something you really want to make fun of? And having seen it, I think, yes, absolutely it is. Because he probably did better at showing the mindset of the German people better than anyone else has probably done in a film. That being said, I got definite Wes Anderson vibes from it. Like when Elsa is taking a bath, and we see a picture of him, and then it pans down to his stomach, and we get a picture of butterflies. Then it pans back up to him. It's like that's a definite Wes Anderson thing. He's got butterflies in his stomach. Like that is 100% Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. It was a fun movie. It's a lighthearted movie. Again, until it's not. And even then, it deals with it in a respectful manner without going over the top to just gloom and doom. So, yeah, it was fantastic. Everybody was good in it, and it was good. I'd recommend it.
Good. Fitzy?
I also give it a hearty recommend. I had seen it, I think, last year for the first time.
Sure.
And this was my second viewing of it. And I made that Drop Dead Fred connection with the scene where the two of them were running with the grenade. I'm like, is this how, like, your imaginary friend will get you into trouble? Mm-hmm. And I think, it's a very well told story, and I didn't get too sad. I kind of saw it coming. There was so much leading up to it that you didn't have enough time to really get sad before things picked up again, just like with the humor and everything. And I think it's definitely one to see, and now I want to watch Drop Dead Fred again, though.
Yeah, we'll do it for an episode.
Film, right?
Yeah, we should do it for an episode coming up. I don't know. I agree with Fitzy. I like this movie a lot. It's a hard topic to do because obviously there's a lot of baggage there, which they touch on. Like, he doesn't shy away from it, which is for the best. I think therefore, though, it does feel like a very uneven movie. It doesn't necessarily feel paced very well. However, what I like about him is he just feels like a different director. Like, and that's why I'm so fascinated by the fact that Marvel keeps giving him a movie. I think he's doing a Star Wars movie coming up to one degree or another. At least he's doing interesting stuff. So much of this, unfortunately for Scarlett Johansson, so much of that stuff feels very the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
So, so at least this gets to be a little bit different. Also, I guess we're doing this because, not that, Tropic Thunder was getting canceled pretty hard, so if you're on the Patreon, you've heard that already. Or maybe, no, you'll hear it next. So stay tuned for Tropic Thunder. But this movie, I think, probably got some hate. I didn't pay attention. I don't listen. But, it deals with that stuff. So, anyway, thanks for being a Patreon subscriber. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back next month with another movie. So, I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. Bye, guys.
It'll be good.
It'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be good. Good. Worth your money. Thank you. Myopia Movies is produced by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Settis. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Settis. Mission Briefing is hosted by John Copsey. Podcasts are edited by Daniel Settis, and Patreon is edited by Nick Hoffman. Our engineer is Nick Hoffman. The theme song is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.